John Hoal is a professor of architecture and urban design at Washington University. He is the chair of the Masters of Urban Design program there. He has impressively just started the first Doctor of Sustainable Urbanism program, the first in the country at Washington University. He also wears several other hats relating to sustainable urbanism. He is a founding partner of H3 Studio, and he has done work all around the world, both with his students and with his firm. And some of the very impressive things that you may have heard of recently, they had in conjunction with the Royal Netherlands Embassy of the US, a year or two ago, did the Mississippi River Symposium and brought together international folks who discuss the Mississippi River and riverways and climate impacts. And so, John is going to introduce our speakers, and thank you very much for being here.
Good. Well, thank you all for having me here. It's a pleasure to be the moderator for today. I also had an hour-long lecture, but we're at least an hour behind, so I'll forego that lecture. But I wanted to say a couple of key things, and a thanks to Sweden here. They were certainly very influential in my career in sustainability. Being trained, I got trained in the natural step system and have used that integral in my work throughout the time, and that has been quite remarkable. Also, just visiting Sweden, I take my students in terms of sustainable city making to Sweden all the time. Stockholm is a remarkable city. I've watched it transform over the last 20 years and become really an icon of how to build towards sustainability. And Malmö, we have one of the speakers who sort of resided in Malmö, and Hanneby are really absolutely instrumental examples of how you can move forward, and watching how that movement has actually filtered across into America through Madison, Wisconsin has been one of the major areas of the natural step system coming in, and sustainability has been really instrumental. And in terms of developing this new Doctor of Sustainable Urbanism, which quite frankly is we want to put our experts out into the world who really link sustainability and city making together, with the premise that the future of sustainability is in the design of cities. And this is very important. In cities, it's about the ecological footprint that Peter mentioned. But if you think and take some of the ideas that he was talking about, in 2050, 70% of people will be living in the cities. That's 70% of 9.6 billion people will be living in cities. Just get a sense of what this will mean. It means making an entire region the size of St. Louis every 2.5 weeks for the next 35 years. So there's an amazing opportunity for us to fundamentally reconsider how we make cities. And as we all know, cities have their own microclimate. So all the extremes that we're talking about become more concentrated in terms of cities. So if we could make cities as carbon neutral or actually net positive, we in fact could use city making in fact to reverse climate change. And this is what becomes really interesting when you watch a city such as Stockholm move from where they were 30 years ago to the agenda as you see today. And just look up Hanneby Part 2, which is the inspiration of making a net positive neighborhood moving forward. So this is kind of really important. And I keep going with the notion that cities, they are an amazing machine and have a potential for both social, environmental, and economic sustainability. And moving back into the role of business, we all know that cities really concentrate and are highly productive. If you take cities, if you look at their percentage of population, but look at the economic output they produce, if you look at America, they produce about 86% of gross domestic product. They're amazing machines. They don't have 86% of the population. They have substantially less. So we can see city making as an opportunity to, in fact, move the agenda forward. And I say that because what's interesting, we're here to discuss COP21, but you know what? last week we just finished discussing the UN Sustainable Development Goals 2030, that agenda. And it's really unfortunate in some ways those two aren't coterminous. But for the first time in sustainability in the UN, they asked cities to have a series of forums which then could influence these goals. So for really the first time, we're looking at world development sustainability goals that are emerging through discussion at the city level. And they had a whole range of cities throughout the world trying to build those up. But we still seem to be having this discussion of climate change apart from the design of cities. And when we think of how productive cities can be and the opportunity that rests before us, I really feel that one of our key challenges for all businesses is how we in fact can begin to have that discussion and link these things together so it becomes an integrated package and we don't have isolated discussions as we move forward. So I'm going to be challenging our three speakers, which I'd like to bring up to the podium as they give their presentation. So what I'm going to do is very briefly introduce Helene van Reis, Deputy Country Retail Manager in IKEA. She'll be our first presenter. She serves on the US leadership team and is responsible for overseeing 10 IKEA locations, including this one here. She comes from Malmo, which we go to look at the amazing work that you've done there, a graduate of Lund University, which we have a partnership with, and she became the information manager at IKEA of Sweden in 2003. She has spent time in Asia, I think for 2 years, running the store in Shenzhen, which would be an incredible, interesting story. We welcome you here and look forward to your remarks.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here with all of you this morning, and I thank you so much for coming here. And I would like to thank the arrangers of this forum and the Swedish Embassy and Cortex operations here for the wonderful arrangements. It's truly wonderful to be in St. Louis. And as an IKEA leader, it's the best day of the year when you're able to be part of opening a new store. So yesterday was a fantastic year. It all went very well and we met a lot of happy customers. And we of course hope to be a big part of St. Louis going forward and working with sustainable projects and efforts to make St. Louis better, but also as a leading global home furnishing company, of course, influence in the best possible way. We couldn't agree more with Dr. Raven about the fact that, of course, sustainability and creating a climate and a planet we all can live on and that our children also can continue to live on is the most important question of all. It's the KPI above all, I would say, that will take us as a company into the future successfully or not so successfully. Yesterday, we were able to greet so many customers to our store, and it is a true pleasure to be able to say that we are very proud of the sustainable efforts that we have done with our store, and you can also find a paper in the back where you can see some of the details. But of course, we can always get better, and our founder, Ingvar Kamprad, is the first person to always remind us about that. So. Going forward, we will ask John and his team here in St. Louis to constantly improve because we believe that is truly our mission. And if you have a vision making everyday life at home a better place for the many people, of course that includes sustainability. We cannot live a better life at home anywhere in the world if we don't try to do it in the most sustainable way. So driving business is also driving sustainability, we believe. And for the US, we are in quite a growth and expansion plan, and more stores will come, and that's great. And next up is Las Vegas, and then Memphis, and Columbus. And after that, we hope to see even more. So, what does a home furnishing company do, and why do we care about sustainability? Well, as I said, if you have this mission, it's kind of hard to disregard this fundamental question. And if you have children, you will be constantly reminded about, Mom, what are you actually doing at work? You know, is shopping really the thing? So if I don't have clear enough answers on those questions when I go home, I really don't feel like the mom I should be. And I was blessed to be born in a country of Sweden that has a good plan, as has had for many years, insights on what sustainability is about. And then I also had a chance to live in southern China for a couple of years, experiencing life in a city with 11 million inhabitants in a subtropical climate, and what type of climate that actually becomes when a development country is doing its best to conquer the challenges. But at the same time, of course, I can tell you, waking up to a blue sky in the US compared to waking up to a not so blue sky in China is a huge difference, and it really makes you, well, aware, I would say, about what kind of a challenge we have ahead of us. So with close to 400 stores and 700 million customers worldwide and 1.2 billion visits to IKEA.com, we are actually the world's largest home furnishing retailer. And we want to prove to the rest of the world and to other business leaders that we can actually become 100% renewable. And that is what we want to do. If we look at one of our major components for making our business sustainable, transforming into a 100% LED built company is taking place at the moment. So the St. Louis store is the first store in the IKEA range of stores that is 100% furnished with LED bulbs. So both indoors and outdoors, it is only LED lighting. And at the end, before you leave, you can get a goodie bag with a LED bulb in it. So we all know that LED is the future when it comes to lighting, and we really, really have chosen this as the component for us at IKEA to show what a huge difference LED makes, because, I mean, it consumes 85% less energy, and it lasts for 20 years. And I don't know, how many other products that we sell that can really show the same KPIs from a sustainability perspective. So LED is something we truly believe in. Then, when it comes to different ways of sourcing energy, we have also decided that wind energy is, one of the future ways of sourcing. And we have invested heavily in wind farms. Here in the US, we have one giant wind farm coming up in Houston, Illinois, and we have also bought one in the Cameron County of Texas. And when they become 100% operational, they add nearly 1,000 gigawatt hours of renewable energy per year and push us another 25% towards our global goal of 100% renewable energy. So we truly think that by investing heavily in sustainability, we will not only be sustainable, but we will also grow as a company, because we believe that our customers appreciate companies that take responsibility. And I think we all feel and know as consumers ourselves that the choices we make more and more become aware when it comes to sustainability. And as I have two little children at home who constantly remind me about this, I think I can say that the future generation will for sure be more demanding when it comes to sustainability. And then we have solar energy, and this is the rooftop here in St. Louis. It's now finalized, and it's a fantastic place to go and watch the beauty of solar energy. I'm sure John would be happy to host you all. And the store in St. Louis is 100% solar powered, and we gain about 20% of the energy that we consume in the store from the solar panels that we have on the roof. And it is also the largest solar array in the state of Missouri. when it comes to helping families and teaching not only children but also adults how to live a more sustainable way, we work a lot with understanding needs that we all have living at home, and that's kind of the base for how we product develop everything. And as you might know, we have a 100% IKEA covered supply chain that we take responsibility from beginning to end, so to say. And in our range, we work very hard on creating more and more sustainable products. And some of them are the LED bulbs, the induction cooktops that we sell, and also smart use of textiles. We encourage wasting less food by selling quite a lot of different smart storage containers and things, and also products for preserving food. We also believe in sorting waste, and here in the US you have a little bit of a different way of sorting waste than most European countries at least do, where we have like 10 bins in our kitchens to sort it in. Here we do it in another way, but absolutely to take care of our waste is one of the most important things that we can do for the planet. And also through our IKEA food range, not only in the restaurant, but also in our Swedish food market, you can find quite a lot of organic and ecologically produced products. And then, since we own the whole value chain, for us it is extremely important to make sure that the materials that we use and the suppliers that we use as sustainable materials as possible. And we work very hard with this, and we also realize we cannot do this alone. So when it comes to cotton, for example, we are partners in a huge global Better Cotton project that really aims to make cotton a much more sustainable product. I don't know if you know, but cotton is definitely not very clean if you don't really work with it. And our ambition is to sell only sustainable produced cotton in the coming years. Then when it comes to food, we also have quite an ambitious agenda when it comes to the food that we serve. As you know, we serve a lot of meatballs, and I think it's like a huge export of meatballs from Sweden, because it is mostly Swedish meatballs that actually go out. But we have actually added to the meatball menu both veggie balls and chicken balls this year, and we're very proud to say that, because we all know how we all need to eat less meat, I think. And for us to be able to serve other types of food is fantastic, and they also taste very good. And then when it comes to salmon, we just recently announced that all IKEA seafood will be ASC and MSC certified. And according to ASC and MSC, IKEA is now the food service provider offering the largest variety of certified seafood species to consumers on a global scale. And we think that not only is salmon very tightly connected to our Swedish heritage, but it is also a very good product and a very healthy product. And then this is a picture from yesterday. I think it's a fantastic picture. It shows the big caring heart that we have for everything we do and all of our customers and coworkers. It also shows a sofa with a cover that is washable and replaceable if you wish so, which makes the sofa so much more sustainable, and it is actually also sold at a fantastic price because we produce enough of them to be able to keep the price down. And I think our care for people, for customers around the world, with the many people that we actually meet, 700 million visitors, 1.2 billion visits on IKEA.com. I mean, to be a small Swedish company that actually isn't even close to the maximum growth that we want to have, we of course have to take responsibility in everything we do. And I don't think that any leader in IKEA today would say that any other question than the sustainability question is the one that builds most for the future. It is the main KPI for us in different ways, and we absolutely believe that our consumers of the future demand us to be able to talk about what we do for making the carbon footprint as small as possible and for creating a business that can live for our children too. And then it's fantastic to be here. IKEA is committed to also be a partner in leading up to the COP21 meeting in France. We want to influence. We believe we can influence, and we believe that we have a story to tell that will also inspire other companies and also prove that sustainability and business growth actually go hand in hand. So thank you very much.
The next speaker is Stein Herndon with the Nestle Purina pet care company and is in the communications and sustainability component and really looks at the supply chains for Nestle's sourcing of work. And I'm emphasizing those because I'm going to come back to them with some questions on that. But prior to being at Nestle Purina, she was with Monsanto for 24 years. On the Public Policy and Corporate Responsibility Committee. So it's really a tremendous expert.
Thank you for the invitation to be here on this panel at this important juncture in history. I'm Diane Herndon. I'm Manager of Sustainability for Nestle Purina Pet Care in the U.S. Catherine, as you pointed out, we're all affected by the effects of climate change. I'm here to talk about Nestle's corporate commitments and actions and what we at Purina, which is the pet products arm of Nestle, are doing to reduce our impact. Nestle is a global leader in nutrition, health, and wellness. The company has 333,000 employees around the world and operates in 197 countries, making well-known brands such as Coffee Mate Creamer, Nescafe Coffee, Gerber baby food, and Toll House chocolate morsels, and the little chocolate bars I left in the back for you guys to pick up. At Purina, we make brands like Pro Plan, Fancy Feast, Friskies, Alpo, Beneful, and Tidy Cats. And collectively, all of the Nestle companies, we're all food and beverage companies, we rely on a healthy environment to produce affordable and high quality ingredients for our products. Nestle and its operating companies have been committed to climate change leadership for quite a while. We're proud to be recognized as a leading company in addressing the challenges of climate change along our entire value chain. Nestle achieved an industry-leading score of 99 out of 100 in the environmental dimension of the 2015 Dow Jones Sustainability Index. We're among the top 2 rated companies on climate change in Oxfam's Behind the Brand Scorecard. They're a social stakeholder group, NGO. And in 2014, the Carbon Disclosure Project ranked Nestle among the leading companies in its climate change and water programs and the top consumer staples company in its forest program. The food and agriculture sectors are expected to be among those most affected by climate change. So Nestle's CEO has endorsed major climate change initiatives, including Caring for the Climate, which is the world's largest global coalition on climate led by the UN Global Compact, the UN Environment Program, and the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Also endorsed CDP's, the Carbon Disclosure Project's 6 climate action initiatives on science-based greenhouse gas reduction targets, renewable electricity, deforestation, climate change information and engagement, and carbon pricing. The trillion-ton communique by the Prince of Wales Corporate Leaders Group, and the New York Declaration on Forests. Nestle sets the global direction and targets, and the operating companies, of which Purina is one, work out the details to meet the goals in the way that makes sense for our businesses. Nestle has made commitments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions per ton of product by 35% by 2015, which we've achieved. And we will soon announce a new greenhouse gas reduction target for 2020, consistent with scientific requirements to limit warming to less than 2 degrees centigrade. We've committed to achieve zero net deforestation in our supply chains by 2020 because deforestation is a major contributor to increasing global greenhouse gas emissions. Food waste also generates significant greenhouse gas emissions, and we're committed to reduce food loss and waste, in particular to achieving zero waste for disposal from our sites by 2020. Progress across Nestle to date, we have reduced greenhouse gas emissions in the manufacturing of 1 kilogram of products by half compared to 10 years ago by improving energy efficiency, investing in new equipment, switching to cleaner fuels, and using renewable energy sources such as biomass, solar, and wind. And from that graph, you can see that production is the top line, and that's been increasing steadily while each of the inputs or outputs that are waste has been declining over time. So that's a good direction and one that we hope to continue. Is it enough? We don't know, but we're going as fast as we can. Across Nestle, we helped our suppliers become more resilient to climate change in a variety of ways. We help farmers use water more efficiently. We provide investment assistance to help purchase biogas digesters for more than 10,000 dairy farms and provide training and assistance to cocoa and coffee farmers on more efficient, sustainable farming methods. At Nestle Purina, where I work, we have reduced the energy use and greenhouse gas emissions from our operations as part of Nestle's goals. So all of the operating companies have strategic targets that we comply with, and it all rolls up to those targets that I just showed, showing Nestle's progress. We're incorporating renewable energy into our power mix wherever possible, and now we have more than 1 megawatt of solar electricity installed across 5 manufacturing plants and office sites in Denver, Flagstaff, Atlanta, St. Joseph, Missouri, and here in St. Louis on the rooftop of our learning center on the St. Louis campus. In addition, we use hydroelectric power at our Dunkirk, New York plant, mostly coming from Niagara Falls. We've implemented cogeneration at our Maricopa, California site, and we encourage utilities in the communities where we have facilities to increase their own percentage of renewable power. In the US, more than 20% of the total electricity used by all pet food plants came from renewable resources in 2014. We also follow green building standards where possible in new construction. We have several buildings that are LEED certified, have the EPA Energy Star certification, or follow LEED criteria, even if they're not at the silver, gold, or platinum level. Beyond our own Purina factories, we'll also soon be influencing our supply chain through our recent involvement in a multi-stakeholder consortium called Field to Market. Current partners are engaged in projects to improve water quality, improve the precision by which farm inputs are applied, reduce greenhouse gas emissions from farm fields, and overall move commodity agriculture in the U.S. in more sustainable directions. Finally, we're looking at the climate impact of transportation. In the U.S., 93% of our truck and rail carriers are members of the U.S. EPA's Smart Way program for continuous energy improvement. In 2014, we were also proud to launch a pilot with UPS on carbon neutral shipping of our e-commerce business through our Purina store, purina.com, and our veterinary business, which is also e-commerce. UPS buys the contracts to sequester or mitigate carbon, and then we buy into their contracts at a level commensurate with our level of emissions from the transportation of our products through their system. We hope to be able to broaden that pilot to cover more of e-commerce, and we're looking into ways to do that now. These are some examples of ways in which Nestle and Nestle Purina are working to curb our environmental impact. Is it enough? Are society's collective efforts enough? I'm sure that'll be a large part of the COP21 discussion. We applaud Sweden for all the work you've done to reduce your carbon footprint and invest in renewable energy. I also acknowledge my colleagues on this panel for their strong efforts in their organizations, and to the City of St. Louis for your actions and for convening this dialogue. It took decades to work our way into this situation. Collaboration on innovative systems, products, policies, and investments are key to help us find our way out. Thank you.
Then we have Elliot Ferguson, who is USA's Chief Operating Officer, T-Kartor, if I say it right, and is responsible for the company's sales operations here. And we are most interested in their work with smart cities.
Hello, everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. I'm representing T-Kartor, which just so happens to be a Swedish company. We are Swedish-owned, and I do have to clarify something on the program. It says I'm the president of T-Kartor USA. I don't want that getting back to Sweden, so I'm the chief operations officer of our North American operations. So I know some of you know our CEO, so Eva in particular. So I corrected myself. I'll be covering smart cities and sustainable transit. I won't be talking so much about our company, but what we do with our customers in order to embrace smart cities, a small portion of what I think smart cities mean and what we think smart cities means. My name's Elliot Ferguson. Like I said, I'm the Chief Operations Officer, and we are here in St. Louis. We're down in the Blanky building, and we've been in St. Louis since about 2002. We're only about 100 employees, 150 employees worldwide, but we do have a presence in 7 countries, and being a Swedish-owned company, that passes down in culture to our company and how we operate on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to start off with several statistics that you've heard in several different ways today, but 60% of the Earth's population by 2030 will reside in cities, and with that projection, that's about 5 billion people. That's a substantial amount of people trying to navigate through very complex systems and live in a very dense situation and understand how they're going to get from place to place. And with that, with 5 billion people, and especially if you're here in the United States, that means a lot more of these types of things, a lot more traffic, a lot more cars, a lot more point source pollution. And that's something that we're either going to have to get used to or encourage people to change. And what we see is that the 2 primary incentives to get people to change are exactly that, incentives and education. And with education, what we do and what we produce is unified information for cities to portray to their citizens, to tourists, to people trying to get around, and do that in a more smart way. And what we encourage is the reduction of this type of picture, which we've seen over and over again. This is a picture of LA. This is actually this year, and this is a better picture than what we've seen in the past. It's improved, but we're still not there. What we work on and what we do primarily for cities and our large customers and our point of pride is London. I think they're the model of what we do in part with smart cities. We encourage multimodal journey planning, and this picture kind of encompasses that entire picture. This is in Copenhagen. And so we're seeing people cycling, people walking, people riding buses, mass transit, those types of things. But all of those systems in general can have a barrier of entry, which is understanding the system, because they're quite complex, or can be, depending on the system that you're introduced to. And so with that, we focus on core competencies and core information gateways for people traveling in cities, and one of those being pedestrian wayfinding. And when you say wayfinding, you usually think about using a GPS, finding yourself in nature or something like this. But as more and more of us move into cities, and like we said, by 2050, 70% being there, getting around a city in such a dense environment is going to be difficult. And what we've been working with cities like London, cities like Toronto, New York City, Paris, and also Birmingham, England, we've been implementing these systems to help people through their day-to-day activities, tourists, things like this. Pedestrian wayfinding is a huge thing because it encourages a sense of place. When people walk, they feel pride in that area. When you're in your community and interacting with that community, it creates a sense of pride, and sustainability comes along with that. You don't want that to degrade over time, and so you'll do whatever you can to connect with that community. It also informs choices. Our products do, by showing journey times on foot. So when you're actually walking from place to place, some of our products, which I'll show here, actually have a walk circle included. You can kind of see those here. The lower maps have a 5-minute walk circle, what it'll take from where you are today, right now, here, in 5 minutes, and the upper is about 15-minute walk. And so it encourages you to create a mental map to get to your next location. London does it particularly well with these maps being, these totems being about every 2 blocks. And what's interesting about these is that when you look at the totem, if you look to the right or left of it, you see what you're going towards. So these are all heads up, not north up when you read a common map. The middle example is Toronto, and the final example is New York City. The second thing that we encourage is cycling. It's a sustainable mode of transport, and what I think a lot of people forget, it is the most efficient form of human-powered transport, and that's a huge thing. It draws attention to investments in cycle infrastructure, and that's huge for St. Louis right now. You know, we're starting the process of introducing a cycle infrastructure, and we're seeing it all over the place, and this is actually a point for me. I like to cycle to work, and I've seen a lot of new bike lanes popping up, and so being able to see those in a more interactive way or on the streets, I think is hugely advantageous. And then spread the Copenhagen cycling city success story to the world. Copenhagen and places like Amsterdam, cycling is ubiquitous. Everyone cycles everywhere, doesn't matter what the weather is, it doesn't matter where you're going. That's usually the fastest way to get there because of congestion or something else. So these are the products that we generate for those types of things. And what you'll see here is a trend that all the products look the same. It's unified information. And so when you get to these things, they're very familiar, they're very trustworthy, and you want to use them, and you know that they're a good source for you to navigate to your next point. And what this does is it encourages people to use these systems, and it's educating the people. If you don't have the access to technology to understand maybe a news feed that comes out to say, oh, you have new bike lanes in your area, or pedestrian wayfinding systems are being put in, you have no way of seeing that if you don't have those devices or access to that information. So having it on the street and getting it into the public forum is paramount. The last one is public transport. So this is kind of all-encompassing. Improving connectivity and efficiency across the region. That's particularly important in the States because we don't have as dense of cities. So you have to think more regionally and out further. And how do you bring those people into the city? And then what additional steps are they going to take to get to their location? And that's what we're seeing in many of the cities we're helping today. They'll use a train system or a bus system to get into a central city, maybe go to a cycle hire station, bring that bike with them to where they're going, and then walk to the duration of their next position in time. It also helps visitors and commuters understand that complex system. Like I said, a barrier of entry for bus systems in particular is they have no idea where it's going to take them next. So you have to portray that in a good way using network maps, the spider maps that you may be used to seeing, or putting it in visual space that they actually understand. And then the last one is linking transportation information across the region. And that goes back to unification of information. Not only does it create a unified format that everyone's used to, but it also creates an identity for that city that you're trying to convey to those individuals using your system. It's very different, as you saw with our products, per place that you are. In New York City, it's very modern, it's very clean. And then in Birmingham, England, on the far side, they're actually embracing a more digital environment with also a more simplified map. If you can see that there, it's a spider map in the middle, and then you actually have index tables that are digital that update with GPS location from buses, trains, those sorts of things to help inform when things are coming and get you there on time. This one here from New York City, this encourages an SBS system, a special bus line, and what that does is it stops in particular locations in boroughs of high density, and then will take you to locations that are also of high density, like the airport or something like this. But they all look the same, they all feel the same, but portray each agency's information in a good way. So this one in particular is for their transit authority. The other ones you saw are for DOT or their Department of Transit. So is this good for business? Absolutely, and this is just case studies from London and New York at this point. There's an 80% increase in consumer spending because you're in front of shops. you're interacting with the shops, and you're willing to spend, and 49% fewer commercial vacancies. And I think that's really, really impressive because it's getting people on the ground and interacting with their community. Is it good for the environment? And ultimately, that's why we're here today. This one study that I'm stating here, to me, this is incredibly impressive, and I'll explain more. This is just off of one street in New York City where they introduced a wayfinding system, just a wayfinding system. Not any infrastructure, nothing else. This is just encouraging people to get out of their cars and to use different methods and modes of transit. That's a huge reduction, and that's over a short period of time. I wish I had more data to give you based upon our wayfinding system, but it's usually much more complex than that. They'll introduce, additional infrastructure and things like this. So this was the most accurate thing that I could say that we've been helping other cities to do, and I'm very proud of this. Like I said, our company here in St. Louis, we've been here for quite some time now. We love it because we're in the middle of everything. We love St. Louis and would love to be more involved in these types of discussions. And I really appreciate your guys' time today. If you'd like any more information, please let me know. Thank you.